Making Lovers is a romance comedy visual novel with the premise of start dating, then fall in love. And they don't fuck around with that concept. The dating may begin through mutual interest of cheaper rent or getting the parents off your backs, but you can't overlook the whimsical red string of fate that both you, the protagonist, and some of the heroines believe in. Throw in the protagonist's twisted interests, blunt honesty, and straight to the point comedic line delivery, and you got yourself possibly one of the funniest visual novels I have ever played. It's Friday, so today we are going to look at Making Lovers and why it's one of the best rom-com VNs out there.
もちろん冗談だって。一応はね。どうかしましたか？捕まえた。あれあれ？妹、ま、今はそれでもいいかな。そうよ。このままでは我々は滅びる。よくないよ、全然。
The protagonist is a college graduate and works as a freelancer. That is, whenever he isn't just playing Ahegao Piss Academy. He has always pictured a destined run-in with a girl that is akin to a storybook romance, and he'd accept no less, which happened to be a problem considering he was pretty shit at romance. Being constantly pestered by his parents and his stepsister, he finally decides to take things a little more seriously and takes up one of his only friend's kakadu on his mixer offer. You might not believe me, but that's pretty much the entire common part of the common route, also known as the prologue, because not even 10 minutes in, you'll be making choices that will immediately lock you into a girl's route. You get no time at all to learn about the heroines and their differing personalities, hence the start dating then fall in love bit. An example of this is that if you take Kakeru up on his offer on one of these earlier choices, you are locked into Saki's route before you even meet her. The 5 heroines, Ako, Karen, Mashiro, Reina, and Saki, are all doing different things with their lives at the moment. So depending on the heroine you wish to start with, you'll be in a completely different environment. A dating sim-esque mechanic that is a mainstay in every route, however, is neat. You can choose how your date ends up. You'll always go to 2 locations, and each location has 2 choices that usually are between the protagonist being sweet and or corny, or just being a bit of an asshole. Don't worry, there are no bad ends here. A unique element of Making Lovers is that the protagonist and many heroines are years past their high school days, so the setting strays a bit from the typical high school setting. Even the heroines that are still going to school are working at least part-time, and that, along with their future career planning, is the main focus of their routes, rather than their daily school lives. In fact, in every route but one, the protagonist is working part-time at the heroine's job, so you get to see him put his freelancer skills to the test in various work environments. Usually I do a story discussion, but it's really not necessary for this visual novel. Minor drama happens during the routes, but it's not where Making Lovers shines, and I'd prefer to skip it this time around and talk about the characters more specifically and their respective routes. We'll start with the protagonist. I've been avoiding saying his name until now because he technically doesn't have one. The default name is Kazuma, but you're allowed to change it, and the protagonist is never specified by name anyway, so I'm just trying to keep it vague. That being said, it can't be understated how funny the protagonist is written in this game. He holds absolutely nothing back, which at times can lead him into comedic scenarios, but this brutal honesty of his is also what the girls happen to end up liking about him, despite it sometimes upsetting them. His lewd speaking tendencies are off-putting, but at the same time he never oversteps his boundaries. The way he could suddenly change the entire mood of a scene with one misplaced comment never ceased to make me laugh. Naduse Saki is a meteorologist with an air of sophistication about her. She maintains stark professionalism at work and of course is hardworking. She is gentle, sweet, and caring, but despite this, gets easily annoyed dealing with her family. She keeps up her sweet-looking smile even when you make her mad, but it induces fear in those who see it. Saki's route was absolutely hilarious, and despite me having no interest in initially pursuing her character, since I got into her route first, I stuck with it, and I definitely don't regret it. Looking back, this might be one of the funniest routes in the entire game, with romance sprinkled neatly throughout. The protagonist easily has the funniest job in this route too, much to Saki's dismay. And the comedic bits outside the workplace, hit pretty strongly too. The amount of times he pisses Saki off, countered with her yandere eyes or ice-cold smile, was funny but not overdone. Saki's dispute with her family is not directly solved by the end of the route, but it nonetheless has a satisfying ending. Overall, a great start. Takanashi Ako has been the protagonist's stepsister since elementary school due to circumstances that required him to be adopted. Whilst she is definitely a lot more childish when her older brother is around, at school and at work she exudes maturity. It's just hard to properly see when she is such a goofball at home, either by talking in her low, cool voice or scolding her father for the 100th time. Little sister routes are always the questionable ones, but considering she's just the stepsister, we'll have to let it slide. To be honest, I wasn't expecting to like this route, but I did. Some of the plot elements and the ending work in tandem to make it feel a lot more conclusive than other routes. However, this route is largely revolved around hiding the relationship from their parents, which occurs for a large portion of the route, which may have jeopardized the pacing. Ako's personality is fun, however, and I suppose due to the predefined sibling relationship, you could say they had great chemistry. The ending is the most wholesome if you can accept a relationship between step-siblings. Overall, I enjoyed this route more than Saki's. Kanome Reina, also still a student, happens to work as a model. Through an unlikely meeting of the protagonist getting run the fuck over, they have lunch together and he learns how energetic, talkative, and annoying she is at first. She immediately attempts to seduce the protagonist to no initial success. I initially really liked Reina's personality, but her route felt very uninteresting to me. I didn't necessarily hate her character or the direction of the route, but the humor wasn't as humorous here, and the romance didn't click for me either. I love how fucking smug her sprites can look though, so credit for that. Overall, my least favorite route so far. Kitaoji Karen is a lot like the protagonist in many ways, for better or for worse. She is a pessimist, short-tempered, and stubborn, but don't let those traits distract you from the good ones you'll further uncover in her route. She had gone to college at the same time as the protagonist, so they knew each other through a club, but they hadn't gotten along so well then, and the mixer that Kakeru invites our protagonist to sparks their reunion. I'm not gonna lie, I was convinced this would be my least favorite route in the romance aspect, and maybe the best in the comedy aspect. What I got was the complete opposite of that. At least for me, Karen's route is probably the best romance route in the game. The progression of the route is smooth, Karen's backstory and route theme of talent versus hard work is interesting, and this route is the best example of start dating then fall in love in the entire game. A great route, and I am newly enlightened to see how this could be people's favorite character. Tsukino Amashido initially came off as a shy waitress at the Leviathan, the bar the protagonist goes to for the mixer. He causes a bit of trouble for Mashido initially, but ends up doing his best to fix it, and if you so choose to go back to the Leviathan for part-time work, you'll see Mashido in a completely different light. Eccentric and cheerful is one way to describe her personality, but odd is another. Her use of puns and English one-liners are one thing, but at times she is completely unpredictable, such as with the ending of her route, which felt like a massive troll. So speaking of her route, I feel like it is the most well-balanced in the game. Mashido's unpredictable and eccentric moments don't outshine the romance aspects of her route either. Whereas in all other routes, the protagonist would be the one to cause complete 180 mood swings in scenes, Mashido steals that role here most of the time. So at times, it feels like the protagonist can't keep up with her, but his frequent narrative shouting led to more humorous moments than usual because of this. Mashido's philosophy towards relationships is very entertaining as she constantly judges the protagonist for the smallest mishaps. Most importantly, however, while she could definitely be strange at some points, she also shows a normal girlish side to her, so she isn't just the weird heroine of the bunch. I felt like she was unintentionally an asshole at the end of her route, which was questionable, but nonetheless, this is the route to do last because it feels like the embodiment of what making lovers represents. As of this video, I have not finished the Fandisk. However, from what I have played of it, I can say that it is more of the making lovers you loved or hated. I don't know what you thought about this game, but the text looks bolder for some reason as compared to the original game, but it's of no issue and probably changeable in the settings, so I wouldn't worry about that. Make sure you get the free 18+ patch for both the base game and the Fandisk if H scenes interest you. And even if they do not, 18+ content may have been cut out, such as dirty jokes, so it is probably worth getting the patches anyway as usual. The H scenes had some variation to them, but nothing overly kinky considering the protagonist's fetishes. I only watched Akko's H scenes because I'm a degenerate, but your mileage may vary. As a modern release, the game looks fantastic. The vibrant colors, the detailed backgrounds, the smooth sprites, and especially the CGs, which are in no small amount, especially if you include the H scene ones. A criticism might be that the characters all have the same facial expressions, barring maybe one or two unique ones. This is where Dana shines. She be looking like that because she knows she got the best sprite treatment. You aren't going to be humming anything from the soundtrack besides maybe the OP, however the soundtracks were used relatively strategically in a way that conveys how a scene will play out. Most interestingly, there is one depressing piano song on the soundtrack, used one singular time during Elena's route and nowhere else. I get depressing isn't tonally appropriate for making lovers, but it always is a shame when good soundtracks go unused. I have no idea what engine Making Lovers uses, but it was not a 100% smooth experience. The game would occasionally hiccup and lag for half a second every now and then. It never crashed, but this was annoying as it would sometimes mess with the BGM as well. This is possibly due to me recording on OBS at high settings, but the game also really doesn't like to be tabbed out in full screen, so keep that in mind. Making Lovers is such a refreshing experience if you are looking for a good laugh and a good romance visual novel. As one who binges visual novels, due to the similar structure of the routes, I would advise not to rush through Making Lovers and to simply take your time. But besides that, Making Lovers was probably the funniest visual novel I have ever played, and a great play if you want to be cheered up. Overall, I'm giving it an 8.5 out of 10. It felt hard to justify giving it a 9 due to how I felt about Elena's route, but don't let that fool you. Making Lovers has something for everybody here, and I now understand why it is so heavily recommended. My character and route ranking will be in the description if you're interested. I had to cut some things in the video to get it out on time, so forgive me. Thanks a lot for watching, and a subscribe is always nice if you feel like it. So see you guys next week.